Hey, you're all set.
Right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 3rd meeting of the Village of New Paltz Planning Board. Tonight, the board has some administrative business to attend to, followed by public comment, and then there will be 5 applications reviewed. So to start, I'd like to look at the August 20th minutes. Were there any corrections or issues with that? Okay, in that case, could I get a motion to approve the August 20th minutes?
So moved.
I'm sorry, before I do that, I wanted to officially announce that Terry Dolan will be replaced with our alternate Nikki Nielsen tonight. So going back to the minutes, can I get a motion to approve the 8:20 minutes?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, last meeting, there was some discussion about a public comment, public hearing policy. We are still working on incorporating some of the specific changes to the language we discussed last time, so we will come back to that next meeting when we have the final text of that. Next, I'd like to get the update from the village board and Ulster County Planning Board liaison. Mr. Murray. Okay, thank you. Our town planning board liaison is absent tonight. Were there any updates from the environmental policy board?
No.
No updates there. Lastly, do we have any updates from our director of planning, zoning?
Just one update, it's not on our agenda tonight, but I wanted to let you know in your packet. And in the email, I secured the not the list of names, but the list of how many people per household were in the on the waiting list for the Affordable Housing Board. And it was almost 70% one-person households and almost 25% two-person households, and then 3, 4, and 5 made up the other 5%. So I just want to bring that to your attention. And also there are 2 documents that were added today about the wetlands. It was the application to the town of New Paltz for the wetlands permit that they will need to secure. And also the response back from their wetlands inspector. And my apologies, they had gotten not sent to us, and I followed up on that and got them added today, so.
That's
We had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, it's lengthy, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention that it's in the Google Drive, so. And they'll be on our agenda at the next meeting.
right. Okay,
So
thank you.
that's all for me.
Next, I'd like to go to public comment. We have this one sheet.
We have 2 people signed up. Allison Nash is the first person.
Where would you like me?
Either of these.
Hello,
Hi,
Allison Nash, live in Prospect Street, as you know. I would like to address the amended site plan review for 7 Prospect Street that is scheduled for today's meeting. The amended site plan had not been posted as of 4:00 p.m. Therefore, the public was not provided ample opportunity for review. Also note that on the application submitted for the site plan review today, Mr. Serta listed the property's current use as a 2-family home residential. Yet on the original application, the plan was to construct was to construct an addition to an existing single-family dwelling and to convert to a two-family dwelling. This carelessness, along with the lack of specificity and detail in previous site plans, adds to what has become a quagmire of code violations and non-compliance. Some examples. 1, the construction of the addition did not adhere to the approved site plan and is thus in violation with the resolution of approval. Note that the addition that was built is even larger than the one that had been approved, which was already oversized and out of character with the neighborhood. 2, the newly constructed addition has several code violations for which variances must be requested. The lot coverage exceeds the amount allowed, and the side setback is less than the required setback. 3, after a stop work order was issued, workers continued constructing an archway. I notified the building department and construction subsequently stopped. 4, despite stating at planning board meetings that no trees would be cut down, several trees were cut down and bushes and grass removed on the substantial slope between the original house and my house next door, which led to flooding. 5, Mr. Serta stated at both planning board meetings and to neighbors that as required in the R2 district, families would be moving into the newly constructed two-family home. Yet last week, I met one of the new tenants when he was moving his belongings into the original house. He was with his mother, and I asked if they were my new neighbors. The young man said he was the one moving in, and when I asked who else would be living there, he said that he hadn't yet met the other students. So despite Mr. Serta's assurance that he would rent to families, rentals by the room to short-term tenants continues. Given the applicant's disregard of the approved site plan, the zoning code, and the concerns of neighbors, I urge the planning board to hold a public hearing before making a decision about the amendment to the approved site plan. Thank you.
Thank
you.
May I have a copy of
Yes,
that? Thank you. Or you could email to me if that's easier.
that's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. The next person to speak is Christine Marmo.
Yes.
Hi, Christine Marmo. I live on Huguenot Street. I own 8 Prospect across from 7 Prospect. I lived at 8 for 30 years as a two-family, and I now rent it as a two-family to 2 families. So I'd like to comment on the site plan debacle for 7 Prospect. This project has been, in my opinion, slipshod since the very beginning. Meeting after meeting, we've been here, you've been here, trying to fine tune and get the site plan as it should be. Finally, there was one, but it was not followed. Doesn't matter if the applicant and his crew are grossly inept, or they made modifications to the site plan in hopes that no one would check closely. The site plan that they are likely submitting to you is reflecting their non-permitted modifications. And I think it would be grossly unfair for this body to approve such a move. It would be rewarding bad behavior. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that would like to make a public comment tonight? Yes, could you please come up and state your name?
Good evening.
Hello.
My name is Mary Jo Martin. Came to New Paltz about 20 years ago as a student. And my child was born here, was pregnant here. He just graduated from New Paltz High School. Been here for a long time, comparatively. Apologies to anyone who's started out in this place. All that being said, from the very first time I came to this town, Um. The gentlemen who are being referred to today, with regards to the new site property, were nothing but kind to me. Also helped me and were very straightforward and honest from the jump, from the moment I got to this town and had my very first car bomb. So that's 20 years ago. You know, obviously, like as a new parent, I was very anxious to drive in the car with my child for the first time. You know, but when I checked in at the shop to make sure everything was safe with my car, you know, received a lot of reassurance, and luckily the only thing I had to really worry about was welcoming my child into this world. So that was a beautiful thing. All that being said, I know this is my first time commenting on this issue, but from the start of meeting these gentlemen, when I came here 20 years ago, they have been respectful to me. And for me, being who I am, that was jarring. Came from Orange County, landed in Ulster County, and to be treated with such kindness and respect, I was like, wow, I'm in the right place. That kind of treatment caused me to want to stay in this town, have my child in this town. And so I know I'm like kind of taking it back, but hopefully, you know, I just want to say that, like, I know recently there's been a lot of development in Ulster County, in New Paltz. Things are gonna change, right? I mean, we got the stone houses, and then we have people who moved here today, right? So things are gonna change, and it's natural that people who have been here for a long time are gonna have feelings about that. It's normal. So I just wanted to like ask for a generous assumption to be made to individuals who have been, from the moment I met them, very generous to me personally, but also just exceptional stewards of this town. Like, if your first moment ever landing in New Paltz is just to gas up and someone gives you some friendly, good advice about your vehicle, that's a nice way for New Paltz to represent. Now, granted, we're breaking ground with a brand new project. It's a whole new issue. But that being said, I'm sure that before the ground was even broken, a lot of planning went into that procedure. And, you know, I guess I just want to make a generous assumption to New Paltz, to the individuals involved, that, you know, essentially things that have been done above board. And naturally, the neighbors who are directly affected, it's going to be an uncomfortable time. And I know many of those people. I'm currently living, my mailbox is right on Prospect Street. And I see them every day, and they're kind to me, and we smile and have great interactions. But I guess I just wanted to say, like, because this is my first time speaking on this matter, like, maybe we can all just make a little bit of a generous assumption about, like, people's motives. They've had a long-standing business in this town, and now they're starting something new. And, you know, before one can even break down, a lot of planning happens. Break ground, my apologies. So, you know, I just wanted to say that, you know, over the years, these gentlemen were first my mechanics and then became friends, and now are my neighbors on Prospect Street. And Prospect Street's awesome. And there's a lot of changes going on, new sidewalks, all kinds of stuff. It's natural that people are gonna have feelings about it. But we need our town to be first and foremost safe. And I trust that, you know, there's no malicious intent here. Other than just wanting to start something new. And so, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else online that would like to make a public comment tonight? Okay. In that case, I'd like to close the public comment section and move on to our first application review. PB 2121 Prospect Street and Henry W. So, Mike, we received some comments from the town of New Paltz.
Yes,
Should I-
so We had sent requests for comments, we referred this to the Ulster County Planning Board. In your packet is a response back from them that this is exempt from their review. So that addresses that. We do have the Director of Planning and Zoning and Code Enforcement and the Town Supervisor here tonight. They did send some comments that I came today that I shared with you. They also would like to speak directly to the board, and it because they're for the public, because they're an involved agency in the seeker review of this, it's not public comment, it's information. So
All
we
right,
want to invite them
yeah, please come
also
on.
to the table. I'll have to bring one chair with the apologies.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
So yeah, we're very happy to be able to provide some input, as this subdivision is still kind of in the early stages. I mean, actually, it's not, I understand it's been in the works for quite a while, but we're at the point now of looking at it again actively. And, we do have, a very active project going on Henry Du Bois, big construction project for the bike pathway that is hugely underway right now and anticipated to be finished in November. So it's going quickly. But it does have some impact on, the plans for, the layout maybe of this subdivision that could be, taken into consideration. And so obviously one is any curb cuts or driveways across the bike path would be problematic. The design has been set and in play, and the materials and the construction is all that is without, any new curb cuts. And it's also a path that's meant for bicycles and pedestrians, not any kind of regular vehicles. The base is not there to support cars, much less heavy trucks or anything like that. So one thing we would ask is perhaps those entrances to those lots be reconsidered in some other way. And then the other issue is that the drainage ditch that has been along Henry W is no longer there. The bike path is there instead, so water flow would not go into that drainage ditch on Henry W. And any water coming off of it's all going downhill, so we're already working on a drainage issue up at Mill Rock and Oakwood Terrace that was not included, unfortunately, in the plan. And we are now retrofitting that in to make sure that water is not flooding down into people's yards or washing away the bike path. So that would be something that this would need to be taken care, into consideration about the subdivision. I know you're not doing site plan application now, but just thinking about where and how water would be caught and managed so that it doesn't come flooding down into the existing catch stations, which are already now at maximum capacity. And we're gonna be adding water to them in further, so.
So you're referring to the stormwater plan that was part of the application that is directing more of the runoff towards Henry W.
Well, there's
Right, yeah.
two towards Henry W, which will no longer have a ditch to carry it, but then also on Prospect Street, the idea was there were gonna be two rain gardens that would tie into catch basin on the south side, then over into the north side. That right now, in particular with the drainage that we're addressing up at Mill Rock, is at capacity. So there will be a need to find a way to moderate any water coming off of these lots once they're built and have impervious surface and so forth, to find a way to manage it somehow. And I know that Mr. Nippen spoke to our highway superintendent about this a little bit today too, but it's just things to think about going forward. So we just wanted to make sure those comments and those issues that are specific, even more so now that with Henry W bike path going in, they're even more problematic than they could be in place.
Yeah, I think just to reiterate the point too is, the removal of the mature growth that's on the lot and the addition of impervious surface. It's an area that we experience decent amount of stormwater currently, and we're struggling to manage it. We're, working on improvements to manage it. So just the introduction like Amanda said, we realize you're not working on the site plan reviews at this time, but as part of the subdivision, you know, impervious surface, you know, we expect, you know, I think it's safe to anticipate sheds or patios or, you know, sidewalks and driveways are impervious, so that just additional runoff in that area. We're just asking for additional thought and concern, or consideration rather.
Absolutely.
Understood.
Can I just clarify, the seeker review includes the whole project, the subdivision and the construction all needs to be considered in terms of environmental impacts. We shouldn't separate that out to the next phase, so we should consider all of this is the time.
But we weren't sure, the drawings we saw, were they kind of, preliminary, just thinking, or were they really starting to get locked in? Because if that's the case, then, yeah, there does need to be some thinking about how that would work. Okay, thanks, Amy.
Does anyone else on the board have any questions?
Can you just clarify your name and role, please?
Amanda Gata, Town Supervisor.
Please meet you.
You too.
We did bring up not wanting to have driveways in the bike path. Because if we're planning, that's something that happens and you deal with it. It's not something you planned.
Right.
So
Well,
we're hoping you would reconsider the division of the lots and instead of putting the 4 lots, 4 driveways. Make it 2 lots with 2 duplex houses or whatever.
So can I comment to their comments?
I'm sure, does the board have any other like questions for Amanda or Tom?
I just want to clarify, because the interest that you have is based on the fact that you own the project for the Henry W. bike head thing. But you also own the drainage on Prospect, or like how, or you need it for the project. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
conceptualize.
So on the south, the corner of Prospect and Henry W, the south basin there is village owned, maintained, but it discharges to a town basin and then, you know, carries on down the Stormway path.
Okay,
So,
it's all interconnected, I guess.
yeah,
Thank you.
of course.
Yeah, and then further east at Mill Rock and Oakwood, there was a missing drainage that's now being dealt with. The design didn't address it. It's now being dealt with because we've seen what happens with water there. So we're trying to take that and make sure it's not flowing down the street or into people's yards and flooding their yards. So that catch basin, the Nordic catch basin, is critical to that whole plan. And so it's already, getting addressed. Yes.
When you say north and south, you're referring to the north side of Henry W and the south side of Henry W? And I just have a question. Is this the first time the applicant's hearing this level of detail about the project, or you've had meetings about this?
I've been working with the engineer of this project for 4 years since they started. And we've made modifications to this section of the bike path through those 4 years to accommodate widening the bike path to allow for a 5-foot grass strip. Because they thought they couldn't do that, but I allowed them to do additional grading on my property to allow for it to be widened. The subject of driveways have been coming up for the last 3 years with them. And their comment to me is sort of a chicken and the egg situation is we can account for it until it's approved. But they're aware of it, and part of widening it, having the 5-foot maintenance strip, which is a grass strip between the bike path, which is the 10-foot path, and the road, is that they wouldn't be required to put guardrail there. And that would make it easier to allow for a curb cut. The bike path itself is pretty substantial. It's got 6 inches of item 4, 4 inches of blacktop. So it's a 10-inch pad, which is probably thicker than any driveway leading on the Henry's Way, so I can say with pretty good confidence. So in order to put a driveway, really all you need to do is change that 5-foot maintenance strip and add item 4 of the pavement there. So putting a driveway across that, I don't think is too difficult. It could also be accounted for when they're in that section of the project. But yes, I have been working with Alta for 4 years now. throughout the process of this. They did make modifications based on what I've done, so none of this is new. I know supervisors coming into this role fresh, so I'm sure there's a lot going on, and I know building inspector is not inherently involved with the details of this project either, but I do know this section because I've been dealing with it for a while. The issue of the two curb cuts came up. Nikki had asked about doing a shared driveway between the two lots, and I looked into that further. We would be able to do a side-by-side driveway, so that would be one wider curb cut, similar to what's on Caroline Way. So that does help with that.
Well, I don't know what to say. Our design does not include any curb cuts at that point. We were never given anything by Alta that as an alternate or anything like that, so.
Okay.
Christie was fully aware.
Christie's not on.
I know, so I know the other issue is Alta, the engineer, is non-responsive to the town because they're not getting paid, or they're not, there's no more money in the
The
budget. so-
design is done, yes, it's done. We're into construction phases.
Right.
So I would say, it might not be difficult to make the curb cuts, but it's not desirable at all. Because you have a bike path, 2 lanes of bike going up and down. Why would you make a plan that puts a driveway through that? There's enough. It doesn't make sense. You have the option of putting a driveway a different way. You don't have to do that.
Have you looked at other configurations, including coming off of Caroline Way?
Caroline Way is a private owned road, so I don't have access to that. My preference would not be to use that either.
Right.
They might trade that for fewer houses or something. I mean, they all live there together, you sold them all their property.
So, I mean, I guess that's a decision you guys need to weigh, is creating a residential driveway across a bike path. That's substantial, that it's an issue. I mean, curb cuts are done all the time. It's not complicated, it's been already provided for, the design has been adjusted to make it so it's not as substantial as what you're saying, because we've gotten rid of the guardrail, we've widened the bike path to make it safer, so it's all been discussed, it's all been worked on, but it has not been implemented because it hasn't been approved by this board, so it's best I can do.
What,
Would you allow me to make a suggestion possibly?
absolutely, yeah.
I haven't looked at the plan intently, so I'm not sure with elevation if this is feasible. But because Prospect Street is a village highway and a public highway, the code does allow for a shared driveway. And I don't know if this is feasible or not, but you could have two shared driveways that could potentially still allow for the 4 lots and have a shared driveway that serviced 2 lots, one behind the other one in front. It would just simply be an extension of the shared driveway. There would have to be a driveway maintenance agreement, but it is a possibility of a way to still achieve the 4 lots and not, because I understand Caroline is a private road, so Mr.
Right.
Niffen doesn't have access to that, but he does have
Understood.
access to that.
Yes.
I do want to say too, Henry Du Bois is half village on the south side and half town, so it is a village road. It's not a state road. It's not, the state's overseeing the project. Town applied for the grant, so they're overseeing the project, but it is a village road, so I don't want you to think that it's something more than that.
Well, I think that this board would like to see if there are other options possible, like could you try to come up with a plan that would have both shared driveways on Prospect, or at least show us a site plan that just had one curb cut onto Henry W.
Yeah, I can certainly modify the driveway to make it in one location, so the two, so the issue before was there is a rain garden between the 2 driveways on Henry Du Bois.
See that?
We can move that to the back, or I can move it uphill and it'd be pretty wouldn't say substantial, but a retaining wall to help it get a little lower because it uses gravity to feed it. So we would be able to put those driveways side by side and basically make it one curb cut.
There's nothing there now. So there's no reason why you have to put a driveway on Henry W. You can,
Well, if that's the only configuration.
it's a bike path. It's not the only configuration possible. How could it possibly be the only?
I
configuration?
can't meet zoning with subdivision based on the minimum lot sizes and everything by having 4 lots facing Prospect Street.
You could have 2 lots.
If there were, I like the idea that Zach suggesting of trying to get to the least intrusive, see an application with the least intrusive of the bike path. And the suggestion of using Prospect as a single entrance to all 4 lots.
I think unless you could do all 4, I think you'd have to do 2 entrances, but still, it's,
meaning one on Henry W. and one.
no, two on Prospect that would, each one would service 2 lots.
I see. They certainly, if I had to rank the ideas, it's certainly preferential to anyone on Henry W. I don't know how it works with the layout you have, or the layout you'd have to change in order to make that possible. I do understand that the south side of Henry W is the village and the north side is, I live around the corner there. If I could ask a hypothetical, if this were complete and the applicant came before us and said, I want to create a subdivision, would it be the town's position that you would ask us to deny the opportunity to create a curb cut after construction was complete?
I think what we would say is that, first of all, we would not, it would be the applicant's expense to do it appropriately, but that again, my understanding is that that this was not designed to hold car traffic. So they would need to have some modification to the base, and that he's got different information than what I've been given, so that'd be something that would have to be evaluated.
So the engineers, when they designed it, they didn't take into account that those were empty lots that could ultimately be developed.
No. I mean, there is Caroline Way there, even though it's a private road, I guess there was a potential for an easement or something to get access to another lot, maybe. It serves what, 3 houses?
For
It's a steep hill and you've got bicycle traffic going in both directions. I'm just coming from a bicycle commuter point of view.
My worry with putting or trying to fit 2 driveways on Prospect Street serving all 4 houses is that then you need much longer driveways, which involves more impervious surface, more trees removed. Like you'd have a much shorter driveway if it was able to exit to Henry Du Bois.
That's why I think you should have 2 lots.
Okay, well, we've already had that discussion and we're not at that point anymore.
I do want to say, if we want to look at the drawing, I had the drawings for the project, and I think there is some confusion about the drainage ditch, because I do feel there will still be a drainage ditch or drainage swale along Henry Du Bois. It just won't be a paved drainage swale.
Definitely won't be paved, no. I mean,
But there will be, there is a 2-foot shoulder with a 16% grade at the edge of the project, and then this property is upslope as well, so we'll make a swale down the whole area. So I know they're losing a paved swale, which honestly doesn't carry much water because it's not really much more of a flat. There is some indentation there, but it's really not that significant, but there will be a swale on the south side of the project.
and
So that's drawn in the drawings, shoulder, and then you do have to go upslope off the shoulder. So I think they're not in that spot yet, and maybe one can have a better conversation with the contractor and DOT about specifically what's going on there. But in a lot of the other areas, they're actually changing grades, but this area, they're not. They're just retopping the road, so nothing's really changing grade wise. So like I said, they have a 2-foot shoulder on the edge of the bike path that has a 16% grade down, so that will make a natural swale because the grade on this property then has to go uphill, so you will get that swale there.
And where will the water flow to?
Same way it does now down to the catch basin.
Yeah. Okay, that's the thing.
So can I just get some clarification on right now, what you're saying is that the catch basins are at capacity, but essentially there's no new development at this point. These are all catch basins that should have been designed separate and apart from the bikeway to hold the water. And I get that we've had a tremendous amount of different weather. So the question I have is, have we considered any additions to properties? Because this, I'm not totally familiar, but I don't think it's the only undeveloped part of Henry W. I think there's other things. Have we considered other areas that have potential for development when we're trying to address the stormwater issues that we're experiencing now? Do we know, are we addressing them more comprehensively or just for what we've got right now?
Right now, we're struggling to adjust what we've got right now and we're replacing a drainage catch basin that was removed and not replaced as part of the design for Henry W. So we have to put that one in right there at Mill Rock, and that's going back into this same system. Unfortunately.
Nikki, the town abandoned the catch basin up at Mill Rock, and they thought that the drainage would be designed for this section because we're going downhill, so you have no drainage. But the engineer just abandoned all drainage on that section in the design. And the problem is they're non-responsive because their time is done. She actually said the engineering's been done. So I know it's probably a difficulty trying to get some design. And I did talk to Chris about the comment made in this letter about no connections, and he said he didn't look at the drawings and that if it was a buffered or like a dosing or slowed down drainage that you could tie in to the catch basin.
Well, I think he's suggesting that that's an option that could be evaluated. But that would be something that we didn't see on the drawings. So yeah, we just saw the rain garden
Sure.
going blue,
Sure.
so.
And where those catch basins go, there isn't any big flooding issues like you have in the other direction on Prospect Street, so.
Okay.
I think at a minimum, we need to see, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
We need to
please.
see the updated details on the plan to show where the bike lane is, where you're saying there's a buffer strip between the bike. That all needs to be shown on the plan so that the board can evaluate it. And any changes to the drainage that need to be considered. Yeah.
I think that's the next step, yes.
But I think it would make sense when you updated the inclusion of the new lane and new construction of it. Wouldn't we hope that that would also be the revised proposed location of the driveway?
Yeah,
Okay, not redo this plan, which is that, but to redo this plan with the new.
with all the details as well as any changes to the drainage plan that, reflect the comments from the town. And I like the other ideas of, having a landscape plan, and I think that maybe could come a little later, but I think we should be really conscious about, what landscaping is going to remain.
Yeah, I think the intent here was, because of the next step would be site plan, that we show that drainage controls or drainage structures can fit on the properties.
Okay.
But once the house is specifically picked and located, that would all be fine tuned along with landscaping and showing what trees are staying, what trees are going for the house and that kind of thing.
Sure, that was kind of the intent, sorry not to interrupt, this is kind of my intent with the language and the points that I made in that. I realize it's a subdivision review, And when you get to individual site plan for each lot prior to the building permit being issued, it's just good to account for these things, ahead of time. So I appreciate that. That's where we're coming from, with regard to stormwater.
And I think one of your points too is that the rain gardens seem to be addressing the roof areas, but maybe not other impervious
so-
areas that might be.
Okay.
Also, I don't know, Floyd, if you've seen, the maintenance plans for the rain gardens, because they typically do need to be maintained. It's just a point that I've dealt with rain gardens in the past, and that seems to be, deferred maintenance can cause issues.
Right, we've included these past ones, with the site plan.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, the village engineers, address most of these. It's in the past, previous.
And one more question, when you mentioned that you could show an application with a single location of the driveway, but then you said it would be side by side, does that mean you would be proposing a driveway that would be double width, but in the same location, or it would be the typical width of a driveway shared along? And
Maybe a little bit wider than a typical width, so that one doesn't have to go on the other's property. So it's just one curb cut, side by side. I had something similar to that on North Manheim, when I worked on North Manheim, we shared, and it worked out well, but then you don't have any issues pulling in and out, someone's coming to get out, and we're
I
trying to
mean,
pull
if
in.
you're pulling out concurrently, you can't be.
What was that too?
It would be that. But I mean, so I guess we'll just look specifically when you propose it, but I would hope that it's not 18 feet and not, what is 9 feet a typical driveway?
Probably be like 12.
Yeah.
Typical.
Just to make sure we're clear, the board's concern is, making it harder for people to use the bike path, right? That it would be less safe to use the bike path
For
for
sure.
more
Yes,
openings there. I'm just
Mhm.
clarifying.
mine's mine.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's certainly my concern too. If it's avoidable, then should be something, and we're fortunate enough, I know we're not at the perfect stage where we can avoid it any option, but if we're thinking of it now, that would be something to make a best effort to.
When you think about the spacing, there's the corner and then there's Caroline Way. It's not a, big distance as you would put another, entrance in between. Yeah. Garbage trucks, milk trucks, all that stuff.
It happens. I think that design might not have been thoughtful to account for the fact that there are buildable lots in those locations. I'm not defending either side of
In
it, but I think that we
2018, I
should look at
wasn't
it.
involved, so I don't know, but it is what it is. and-
Yeah, they were aware of it, but the comment made to me was they can't design it unless it's an approved driveway.
Mhm.
Right now, it's just one lot. It's not.
You could have had an interest from Prospect and it wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah, but they were aware of I was in front of the board during this process.
Well, I think we know what we need next, and so we will evaluate that when we get the updated site plan. Is there anything else?
No, thanks for having us and thanks for allowing us to put this in front of you and thank you also, Mr. Nickon, for.
Yeah, thanks.
Next we have PB 2404, 3 Water Street.
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
You're well.
So. Got a lot of new stuff from you. I was wondering if is your consultant online, or could you walk us through the
Yeah.
additions to your?
Sure, the changes that we have made
Yeah.
to the parking lot. So one of the concerns that came up at the last planning board meeting was that there were 2 parallel parking spots on the westernmost side of the parking. We had our traffic consultant do an auto turning analysis and just kind of came to the conclusion that there wasn't enough room for the easternmost parking spots to do a reverse maneuver without being too close to the parallel parked car. So the suggestion and what we're proposing tonight is that we eliminate one of the parking spaces and just shift it into a singular.
Make sure I'm looking at the right one.
Yeah, so essentially instead of a parallel parking spot, it's a pull-in spot.
Okay.
The one on the westernmost side of the parking. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other things that we started to take a look at were the accessible parking. That is on the west side of Water Street and the loading zone and dumpster location. It was advised that we move the dumpster location closer to the premises in order to be more visible, just given the nature of our product. We'd like to minimize the distance that our employees need to walk from the front of the premises to the dumpster location. We do have some pretty strict regulations required for dumpsters. Essentially just need to be kept locked at all times. And also visible. So we moved it from where it was in front of the accessible parking closer to the building. And then the other thing that the reason we did that is because and additionally, the accessible parking has enough width to accommodate the accessible wheelchair access. It's about 4 feet wide from where the vehicle is parked, so that allows anyone exiting the vehicle to have a safe lane of passage. Initially, our opening operation plan is to offer our services to accessible customers, either through an online order pickup system. That's initially what we're trying to do in the opening phases of our project. And then the other thing that, we had the comments from the DPW. Thanks, Mike Baden, for getting those for us. And 3 of them, one of them was regarding just the plantings and just making sure to keep a 10-foot distance from any roadway. And also we'd be willing to just ensure that our landscaping services keep the line of sight clear around all of the roadways along Water Street and Main Street. Essentially, the planting area on the northeast side of the property is designed to be a low bed planting filled with various seasonal flowers and plants. Essentially, the reason we put that there is part of the concern that our traffic consultant brought up, and that's that there is an unsafe crossing that is anywhere that is less than 100 feet from Main Street. So currently, as it exists and what we designed is the planting is intended to direct the public as well as our customers from going through the unsafe crossing of the intersection of Main Street and Water Street. It's a very busy area and we just visibly observe a lot of people walking across that section. So the planting area there is sort of meant to be, please don't step on the flowers and walk across the street here. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get all of the customers from the parking lot to go from the catch basin of the parking lot, cross the public roadway of Water Street, and essentially land in the loading zone area. The loading zone area is used only during, not during hours of operation. And that's by law, we're actually required to do our product deliveries, not during open hours. It's part of the design and security plan of the premises. So essentially we would be giving directions on the southernmost parking lot sign that would instruct people to cross the roadway, as I think has been happening for previous businesses that have occupied the space. So really what we're trying to do is just get the safest place to cross, and it's currently at the southernmost end of the catch basin.
Yeah, the whole design of the green space and the parking lot is essentially made to force a pedestrian or a patron to either have to cross to go across back at the rail trail or to go through our parking lot, because those planters along with the bed planting basically creates the corner that they can't get through. And additionally, we've added a proposed stop sign at the entrance of exit of our parking lot to ensure that vehicles are coming to a complete stop before they're entering Water Street. Along with that, in the sign plan we sent you guys as well, these signs are being designed to be clear, concise, yet not intrusive to the surrounding aesthetic. So we are working with all very small farmers within this region to do pretty much every portion of this project. And this means a local artist is coming and hand painting those signs for us. This means a small farmer is helping us plant these planters. And we are really bringing our community to implement this plan that we're trying to do. But our top safety is
ensuring that people are coming in and coming out as safely as we can. So in our first proposed opening of the pre-order online, we have an additional ability with our staff in-house when someone is to pick up the order to remind them to cross at the proper crossing. So we can do this in many implements as this person visits us, and we hope that as patients repeat to us, they'll start to understand that structure and follow the rules.
Yeah, okay. And I think one of the, do you have a comment, Zach?
No, thumbs up.
Okay, and I just wanted to say, I just kind of reviewed some more of the DPW's comments. One was about the catch basin itself, and just a suggestion to consider asphalt, like a skirt. What we really like to do is avoid any construction or additional non-impervious surfaces to be added to the site. We believe that this area here that encompasses, I think it's almost 20,000 square feet, it essentially acts as a catch basin for all of the businesses at higher elevations than ours. So we don't want to negatively impact the water coming in. And I believe that the concern is that the rocks are, just to kind of like fold the rocks back. If it's something that the board would be willing to, reconsider, we can think of another solution, whether it's street sweeping services or just a commitment to maintain the
entrance.
right, essentially just keep the skirt clean and keep the roadway from.
We feel doing a construction of that magnitude would take a lot more consideration and understanding in the water movement in that area.
Isn't it just adding like a strip of asphalt near the front of the?
It would be like a skirt that essentially
Would
goes
the
in.
water pool then right underneath that skirt right there then, or would it like, this is,
It's the drainage entry, right?
it's
For
the
the
drain
storm
is in the center of the road.
So what they're saying, is I'm gonna channel my inner Terry.
Yeah.
Terry probably shares that, when you have stone or gravel or other surfaces that have the potential for runoff, that they often do run off lots of material and they all fall into and gather in those basins, which then causes longer term clogs down the line. So I didn't, frankly, on my first
Who's
meeting
coming
back.
in front of me here, he says from the crest of the driveway. So basically, I believe he's talking about that whole section of the driveway. The parking lot is a higher elevation and it slopes down.
Yeah.
I think he's asking for that slope to be asphalt.
Yeah, so is he asking for it to be done that way, or is he thinking it's a good idea? I didn't read that.
He says it should be installed to the top of the crest of the driveway to hold back gravel from entering the roadway and.
So that means it has to happen.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty important to.
Sorry.
No, I totally understand, and I think just to continue the discussion, I think there's several other points to consider that may factor into your decision about making that a build condition.
Okay.
So one of the other problems that we've just observed and tried to work with our professionals to get a good, clear answer on is the thought of a crosswalk. I think that there is some issues with putting a second non-intersection crossing in this area, because we already have the rail trail further down Water Street, and then there's another one on Main Street. So we've currently got two non-intersection crossings, and our traffic consultant believes that adding a third one at that area would cause quite a bit of a traffic jam. So we'd be willing to look into alternatives, but it's not something that we're, it's not very economically feasible right now to consider
I feel it would
What
make
they-
it not as safe, to be
Wait a
honest.
minute.
for vehicular traffic.
What did you say? I thought your traffic consultant recommended the crosswalk. Are
He
you saying-
recommended the crosswalk he actually recommended the driveway be moved completely.
Right.
Which is why, perhaps it would be worth considering alternative options before we go paving the skirt. Because
Right.
currently the issue that the traffic consultant brought up is that anyone who is in queue, essentially Water Street, turning right onto Main Street acts as a de facto turning lane. People are able to wait in the queue on Water Street to turn left towards the bridge. And someone can pass them on the right to make a right turn onto Main Street. He did say that some striping on the road may help enforce that, if that's what the village intends the roadway to be used as. But essentially what happens is if there's more than 3 vehicles stopped at that stop sign, waiting to make a left or a right turn, it effectively blocks the driveway from anyone entering or exiting. So the recommendation was to move it entirely, and we believe that that is a bigger project
And
that may require just additional considerations. We would want to have additional professionals look into this, and we'd have to consider the impacts to the traffic in the area, as well as the aesthetic, as well as the, construction. So at this point, what we really are trying to do
there are
is,
trees there.
plus we'd have to cut down trees. So moving the driveway entirely seemed like not the best option for the village or us, the applicants. Our traffic consultant advised us on several ways we could accomplish that. But I think that would essentially change the direction that the water would be coming out of the parking lot. So we would have to have several other studies done. So we understand that safety is the highest priority here, and we want to work with the planning board. If there's any kind of way we could work on a condition of approval for an opening of our project to get
With
the
a timeline
retail
to require-
open, and perhaps like a reasonable amount of time to complete additional studies, and potentially a build condition where we would have to put in a crosswalk and consider driveway alternatives.
So you're asking us to give you a conditional approval of the project and the dispensary, but then deal with the parking issues separate. I don't.
Within a certain time frame
that.
that we're required to complete the project. It's just, we are an incredibly small family farm that makes our entire income off of vegetables. Any of these additions would take us many months to do. It would allow us to complete these projects much quicker if we could enact this space and gain sales. Projects of this side would take us easily another year to complete, and I don't know that my family's farm would last that long. And so,
And we're also in the position where we are tenants of the space. We are not the property owners. It would actually not be us. It would be a much longer process for us to have to go back for our landlord. We probably have to get some legal counsel involved, and it would take some time.
I wanted to clarify because I didn't know if it was even something we.
Currently, as my understanding is, it is a suggestion.
but yeah, no, what she's saying is if we could put.
I think she's
conditions like that.
asking about, the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah,
I'd have to look, I mean, the hard part is, once you get to a CO, then how do you?
I don't
require
understand how you
that?
could sever.
so when we first talked to the board, you guys understood our whole plan. Obviously, the dispensary is a portion of the space and we will have to come back in order to open the remainder of the space. We will have to pull permits with the building inspector. We haven't even begun construction on that section yet. We will have to be back within the year in order to complete this project, and move forward with that portion, but,
I'm sorry, I'm not really sure what you're asking for right now with respect to the site plan. Are you saying you just want to leave the driveway where it is, and it doesn't matter to you that nobody can access it if 3 cars are backed up?
We spent enough time, our farm store is right there on the corner there. We spent enough time there and just observed it. The traffic queues move pretty quickly. It's not like more than a minute and a half.
I mean, I see you have a very thorough traffic impact study.
Sorry.
And I mean, I am not convinced that moving the entrance to the parking lot is really the ideal solution. Anyway, so I'm more, concerned about the DPW's comments and just, getting the site plan to the point where we feel comfortable as a board approving it.
What is the width of the other entrance, the one that's further away from Main Street? Do you know that width? It's not,
The other entrance?
what other entrance?
well, it looks like there's a big wide open space.
No, that's
It's
actually
all-
a stretch of green
Okay,
space.
it's all green.
Yeah.
Never mind. Trees.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
trees along that, almost that
Okay.
entire area to the,
Okay.
up to the rail trail.
Visibility.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a turn and a hill,
So normally we refer traffic studies to our traffic engineer
Yeah.
to look at, so that might be the next step. So
Right.
that they can give us, give the board advice.
Yeah, I was gonna say we could refer to them with some particular questions and considerations that we're trying to have them help us figure out. And for example, if we look at the study and we look at the, the table which indicates the low service comparison. I'm not trying to interpret, but we all know that the intersection of Main Street and Water Street is challenging when making certain turns coming from certain directions. My experience is probably, anytime you're making a left turn across the lane and getting in their direction. So when it describes, if you're looking at the table, when it describes the approach being the northbound approach, if it's northbound, that would mean it's going, off Water Street toward Huguenot Street.
Yes, that's.
So that means that's the one you have to wait the most is when you're trying to play Frogger across two car lanes. Sorry, that's a generational reference.
There, yeah.
And so that's in play with the consideration you're mentioning because of if you got three cars, and that one in the build scenario can be as long as a minute and a half that you wait to do that. So I just want to say, like, we could ask our engineer, like, what's your experience with a scenario like that? Which, again, it's really affecting the way they enter your business. But since it's changed, it goes from an F to be an F and it gets a lot worse. I'd love to hear their perspective on that. And then, the other question I have is the traffic impact of your project and the effect on pedestrian and car traffic in an area is brought on by the opening of your business and the sales that you hope to generate when it's open. So I think we can look at like pieces of it, like, do we really recommend they move the driveway or was that just, a passive recommendation? But what I don't think we can do is consider any kind of conditional approval that doesn't take into account the impact of the project.
Yeah.
The impact of the project is exactly what the conditional approval would bring on.
Right.
So, I want to make sure we're not,
One other question I had about the traffic study is currently, you have people parking in that lot. Maybe some of them are patrons of your business, probably most aren't. Do you have a sense of like at what capacity that lot is already at?
Yes.
Absolutely.
We estimated about 90% of people parking in that parking lot over the observed period to be illegally parking there and not entering our business. They are essentially, we are responsible for enforcement in the lot. It's just, we are not in a position to be enforcing because we're not open.
Yeah.
And so I've witnessed up to 24 cars parked in various ways in that lot. And the longer we let this go on, we'd like to see it kind of get over.
Is that reflected in this traffic analysis with regard to like additional trips generated?
Yeah, so actually the trip generation was based on all traffic entering the parking lot.
Okay.
The determination of 85 to 90% is based on our customer sales, because we currently have the farm store open. And I can tell you, I can show the reports from our point of sale that show you that we have sometimes less than 20 customers per day, Wednesday through Saturday. And physically observed quite a few cars in the lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think
And we would love to be able to set up the planters and the stops. We just, this
We would need approval to do what we think would help organize the current situation there.
I would really like people to not park on that green space grass anymore.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's one of our.
Is it, I don't even know if this is feasible, but can you put like a coin meter in a private lot and charge?
I don't think it's not in the Gateway District.
Yeah.
And we would have to get a variance, and we're not trying to do that either. We would like to provide the lot for our customers, and we would like to keep the green space green for the public welfare. That was one of the reasons that we came into this site as the prospective project the owner of the space really liked what we had to say and what we had to offer, which was a community store of farm goods, some of them grown ourselves, our family farm. And that was really what we were trying to give to the community, keeping the green space green. That was really the objective here. The cannabis retail square footage.
I mean, that's all part of it. I hope that I can, give the board just maybe even more of a little bit of insight. Being one of.
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt. I just think that we have to go through this process and we still have a number of steps to get through and
Okay.
yeah, but understand that it's very important project and you know, we like what you're doing, appreciate all the, you know, studies and the care that's gone into it so far. But is the board ready to refer this traffic plan to our consultant? And are there any specific questions that we want to ask him to address?
Yes, I would like to know what it's about using brick instead of asphalt, because it would match more with the building.
For the apron of
Yes,
the
correct.
driveway. Okay, I'm not sure that's the traffic consultant. That might be more like DPW or Blue. We could ask him
That
about,
would be a blue question. Yeah.
you know, impervious surfaces for that.
And wouldn't that be something the landlord would have to provide for them as tenants?
That's not really
So
our,
landlord tenant,
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever the term really so.
yeah. Okay, so I'd like to get a motion to refer this traffic study to DTS Provident for review.
I think the biggest sections I would ask them to plan on are really the recommendations and conclusions. Right, because there's a few things in there that are things that the applicant might not want to do, but they may just double down and say are really important, and that's where I think we'd have to consider.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that.
The rest of it's all science, but those are the parts that's actually like opinion.
Mhm. Okay, could I get that motion? So moved and second?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
I also think we're at the point where we can refer this to the Ulster County Planning Board, so. I'd like to get a motion referring the application to the,
You won't get on their agenda until October, so if you wanted to wait until you got back your consultants for the next meeting. I mean, I can send it either way, but you won't be on their agenda until, because their meeting's tomorrow night.
sure.
So you're not gonna be on tomorrow night's agenda, you'll be on the October agenda. But I can always send that separately as an addition when we get to the. point.
Yeah, I'd rather make the motion now and then, you know, if they're on the agenda or
No
if
problem.
not.
Yeah,
So, yes, could we get that motion to refer the application to the Ulster County Planning Board?
So moved.
And second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excuse me, Zach. I would
Yeah.
say we have had some delays with our traffic consultants getting back to us. So if we're looking at having that month wait, maybe we could ask them to please get something to us so that it could be in our hands before that meeting.
yes, I will send it tomorrow.
Thanks, man.
Great.
And would the board be able to determine the escrow deposit amount required for the traffic study?
I can find out because the board has done a new resolution that basically I set the escrow, so I'll see what you have left in your balance. We'll get an estimate, and if we have to raise it, we'll just
Yeah.
send you an email.
I appreciate that.
And it's not a whole new study, he's just reviewing the study that.
Yeah.
was done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would the board want him online at the next meeting as well? To answer questions?
I kind of think it depends on.
Yeah, depends on the
It's-
analysis.
Yeah,
Understood. We'll take it from there.
Brief memo is usually gonna work.
I also wanted to suggest asking the design review board of the village their opinion on the sculpture garden landscaped area. You know, I'm not sure if you know the whole history of that, those sculptures and
They're older than I am. Apparently.
some of them,
Yeah.
some of them are quite new.
Ah,
And so I think it's appropriate to ask the design review board for their opinion, given the zoning in the area.
would we be able to get a certificate of appropriateness from Valerie herself, or would it be her recommending it to you?
They would just review the application and give us a memo saying with their recommendations, yes.
And so I'm just making sure that I have the right, so we would like take pictures of the existing sculptures and submit that, because we're not proposing new.
We're not
sculptures.
allowed I'm sorry.
No, I wasn't suggesting that you were going to add anything. I think that they would, I'm not sure you have to do any additional work. We would just send them for their current application. They would do site visits. They would, do their own process.
Absolutely.
Might they be recommending like a removal or something of newer structures that?
Yes, I think that's possible.
And I'm sorry if I'm forgetting this with a couple rounds, but is there exterior changes to the building that you're making?
Only painting
Right,
and
so-
maintenance.
So,
Valerie
colors-
McAllister
We've already
came
done that.
and visited the
That's what they
site,
did,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember them being involved, and now we're at.
Yeah, she came
Consider
to
the space with the
the
east side of
location.
Water Street and okay, yeah, that's good.
These signs, or it's coming off.
That's one of the things that I'd like their opinions on.
Yeah, we'd love to get their opinions on it. We
You
basically
would have
followed.
to go back to the landlords for asking any of this kind of level of change. Because we have been told not to as of right now.
But yeah, we do have plans to do some exterior, just the shutters and the trim.
Shutter, trim,
paint,
doors, patio.
Yeah.
historical colors
That's
already
all
approved.
good.
Yes,
That's what I thought.
yeah.
Okay.
Regarding the sculptures, the building department, we did a little bit of review. We can't find anywhere where these were ever reviewed by any board. And if you look through the parcel viewer chronologically, you can see some here and then a few more here and a few more here. So, we're not sure that, we're not saying they should be gotten rid of, but we're not sure they ever went through any appropriate approval as well, so.
Like driftwood.
Lifted onto the property.
Okay. Yeah, I like the idea of them taking a
We
look.
need to do, we should do a motion.
A motion, yeah,
So move.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So I guess that is all for now. Do we think that we have enough to set the public hearing for the next meeting? If, given that we can get our traffic analysis by then.
To wait for county comments back to close it, so we might want to set it.
I would say switch to September and maybe do the 1st of October if we want to schedule.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but even then, we won't have.
Actually, you're right, being that it's October 1st, the county planning board meeting is October 2nd. So you're not gonna have them back until the meeting of October 15th.
We can open the hearing and then,
Yeah, we can open it and hold
you
it.
know, whatever your
Sure.
board wants.
Yeah.
Well, I'm willing to set the public hearing. I think the plan is far enough along that we can take that step. So if I get a motion to set the public hearing for this application for October 1st,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think that's all we can do for tonight.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, guys.
Thank you. Notice requirements for doing the public hearing.
I appreciate that.
Next, we have PB 2403, 2729 Main Street. So long. Jesus.
You put this on the easel? Yeah. Okay.
So, the last meeting, we talked about, adding a few things, we talked about adding this planter, removing this parking space, adding planter and tree. Landscaping, about adding 3 street trees. And then across the street, we removed 6 parking spaces and landscaping. The grass and some pillars. And then this area, we removed, this is all part of the county planning's recommendations. This area, we removed, wood chips and the plants and put grass in. That was all really part of the county's comments.
Right. And also adding some of those street trees, right? Is that
Yeah,
reflected in?
1, 2, 3, 4 street trees. And I could not get the landscape architect to review the plantings, so I just kind of headed the street trees and left the planting the same. So I'm gonna have to have them look at what's gonna be hard into the shade, because these trees are not gonna stay.
Right, and so the landscape plan is coming, but it's not quite ready.
I'll have it by the next meeting.
Okay,
But the street trees and all that will change, it's just a matter of what, I'm gonna have to reduce this somehow, because it's not gonna be hard.
yeah. I mean, the big issue that I'm seeing is that the configuration of the parking lot is across the street is not what we talked about. When we talked about converting some of those spots to green space, I thought it was pretty clear that we wanted that whole, 4 spots on either side near closest to Main Street to be the green space, and ideally it would be a full strip, not just.
Oh, yeah, there'll be steps.
Right, I assume there would be a path through the green space to the parking lot. This to me is just like you want to break up the gravel and plant a few shrubs in, whereas we were hoping that it would actually be an appealing patch of something that people could walk through on the way to the building.
Well, maybe I misunderstood you, but I specifically talked about saying, we'll take 2 up in the front and then we'll have a few. And we took, these are 2 spaces actually, these are 1 each, so that's a total of 6 that we have access on. And I thought that would reduce the overall massing of the parking lot by having these alignments. But if the board would prefer all of them to be up front and we to reduce this area except for this walkway, that's certainly possible.
I mean, what is the rest of the board? If I could just
Good for him.
notate on,
Yeah, mark it up.
I thought we were discussing these 4 spots being green, and so having essentially, this area all being green space, and then just 1 of these.
I'm gonna have to leave it small for people to walk.
Yeah, absolutely, there would be a path.
Yeah.
But I'm open to suggestions from the rest of the board, and maybe I was misunderstanding, but.
I think that's better to have the green space congruous and by the sidewalk.
Right.
Agree.
I'm sorry about my absence last meeting, but was there a conversation that led to the board's agreement that removing the green space and adding parking on the north side was Good idea.
It was more in the interest of getting to a final site plan so that the board could vote it up or down.
Wasn't it also recommended by the county? Didn't the county say like if they were land?
The county thought it was better than where the existing spots are because it's backing into the travel lane. So that was their
County
comments.
recommendation because the county had reviewed and didn't have the same problems you had with the
And it's county,
front of the financial services.
county specifically citing the pinching of the way the parking is now. The pinching of the area. In fact, when there's cars here, the garbage truck can't even get in to pick up the garbage. So what the county cited was from a public safety and access, it's better to move them the way they are, the way they're proposed.
I understood that there was no issues with flow there from or no accidents or anything, but I guess the county might know something we don't.
Well, there are no accidents, there's been no accidents in the parking lot. In 5 years.
Right.
Did you get to see the county letter? We could pull it up if you want.
We don't have to do it for me, I know there's, not at this time, all of
Yeah.
that, thank you. And in terms of, the landscaping plan for what's taking place on, Works Main Street. I know that the Gateway Standards also, request that when parking is required to, face an existing street or an existing, property, that there should also be a landscape, plan that obstructs the view of the parking from the existing, street or the existing property. So has there been any conversation about the landscape requirement of the perimeter of the parking as well?
I'm not sure, you're talking about like adding some low plantings.
Yeah, something that
between those
In
streets.
the green space trade-off to me isn't a trade-off necessarily because the green space we're talking about there is kind of eye level as opposed to the experience of having green space that's accessible and that people could spend time and enjoy. But if that's where we are in terms of looking at the trade-offs of the plan, then I want to make sure that at least the other ways that we could try to have as much conformity with the gateway standards are in place. So one of them is also that the gateway standards recommend that traffic, that parking be obscured. I can't remember the exact language, but and that there be a landscape plan that tries to obscure traffic or parking to the degree possible for adjacent properties and streets.
So do you want me to remove the trees that had plantings?
No, but there could be all those spaces that are blank where there's just parking headlights into them and cars to them. Could be obscured by landscaping.
Yeah, talking about like some bushes in
Yep.
there.
Yep,
Oh.
yep. And the adjacent property to the east. Yeah,
Well, this, so I don't really own all this, which is mostly.
so your parking goes right to the
Goes right to the
property line?
Pretty much there.
And there are guardrails between, right?
So there's really not a lot of room to add anything here that, remember anything you do add will have to be, snow, ice tolerant or salt tolerant, because this is where the snow is stored.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I would also, talk to the landscape designer and landscape architect about that area by the drive-through, that's, you made just grass. I mean, I think the county was saying it could be like a more inviting public space, so if there was some additional landscape on the perimeter or some way to like make it a little more be like public space rather than just a grassy stance.
Well,
maybe like a table or some, a bench or something, you know?
well, the county was talking about removing the wood chips and replacing it with grass. So if you remove the wood chips, then I'm gonna be going back to, I'm gonna have to add a little piece of concrete here to put a bench here. And are you saying you want me to go
Oh,
back to wood chips and like some grass, and because it's gonna be a little hard to develop, it's a small area.
No, I'm
All
not
that.
saying go back to wood chips,
It says, recommended to be redesigned to serve as a public space with a combination of street trees, lawn space, and benches or tables that can help mitigate the loss of the existing green space.
When we go back to, you know, you can add a street tree or two there, but again, you're going back to a shade situation and you're gonna be limiting the area that you have. So if you want shade trees, I can do shade trees, but then the grass will have a short lifespan.
just asking. I think the county made a good suggestion there, and I think that you could talk to your landscape designer about how best to follow their suggestion.
I see, trying to make that into kind of living space.
I mean, I would ask the board's direction, do you want me to put street trees in there or?
I mean, I think a tree there would be nice.
The one thing that's interesting about that space, and Mike and I did a site visit there, when you're pulling out of there to seeing traffic coming from the east is actually difficult to, you know, I asked about those mirrors, but they're not, I guess they're not safe either. So you'd want to be thoughtful about the line of sight when you're pulling out of that's required for a car leaving your property and seeing traffic coming from the east. So whatever landscaping is proposed, the bushes that are already there, we saw affect that line of sight. And what happens is you have to be in the sidewalk in order to see far enough up east to make a safe turn out. So now you're putting your vehicle on the sidewalk in order to do it.
Yeah, well, so then, again, here, this line of sight can be, there'll be really nothing here.
Well, maybe that would be a beautiful nothing. Maybe it would replace some of the green that exists on the other side. And it could be designed to look like, to be attractive, but maybe not a tree like you suggested, because it would have the potential to make that line of sight worse.
Because we already have limited
Yeah,
visibility.
it's already, I don't know if you do that, right? You pull out of there and you end up, you're in the sidewalk in order to be able to see up. And that's partly because of the bushes that are already there. So my suggestion would be the landscaper should understand that and
Well, you can do like bunny grasses and smaller, lower things that are growing here. Put the benches a little further back, so benches are actually gonna obstruct the view as well.
You're gonna work with Liz Bloom, right?
Yes.
I would just ask her to, you know, do a comprehensive look at all the spaces and that we've been talking about and give us something that we can digest. Because I don't think any one of us is the expert on exactly which. I don't even appreciate what bunny grass means. So, I'm like, you know, like a plan that we can kind of interpret.
thank you.
Okay.
Let me see, what else? Yeah, I think those were the two main things, and it seems like when the landscape plan is ready, that will answer a lot of our questions or address a lot of our concerns, so unless the board has any other issues they want to raise.
And just to clarify, across the street, you're gonna change and remove all the parking spaces closest to the sidewalk? Is that what I was understanding?
I think that's the consensus unless you're, you know. You have a different idea, Rich?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
But yeah,
Okay.
again, just if we can look at it all in a way that. I can appreciate instead of
And I'm gonna tell you, there's gonna be a long list of things that no one's gonna know what it is. Cause I don't know what half the stuff is as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it'll achieve the goal, which is the line of sight. You know, shielding things from the car, will be drought resistant and salt resistant on this side of the road, because there's no irrigation.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
And I spoke with Thomas today, it was just an update in the schedule.
Yeah, he
Yes.
took care of that, and two cents for you.
Oh, look at that. Look at that, thank you.
Yeah, I understand the county memo.
We had a large discussion
I
about
figured.
the recommendation versus what it is.
It's just that, because the premise has been that the parking lot is so safe that there's never been an accident on it, but the county memo is explaining that their recommendation is to make it safer. So I'm not seeing the logic, but it's okay.
I think they're concerned about how tight it is there with the current parking areas.
But you shared that there's never been an accident.
There hasn't, but when people are not properly in those spaces as they are here, you can't get in there. So what they're talking about is widening it so that you can properly get through without potential of this happening.
Yeah.
Like you have people parking unintended spaces.
Yeah, I never recommended remaining, those, all those spaces remaining, I recommended just a handicap spot there. And it's okay, thank you.
All right, I'll make sure that Liz has this for the next meeting. And then we'll incorporate all these.
Okay, great, and yes, we're working on a resolution as well, so we will have that at the next meeting.
Okay.
That we solved.
If anyone thinks of anything, just have Mike just shoot us an email and, well, because we have a little time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Have a nice night. Yes.
Next we have PB 24 XX, I guess it's not numbered yet, is that? Or sorry, that was maybe from your memo.
It does have a
PB
number.
2407, 147, 149, 151 North Chestnut. That'll work, yes.
I do have a paper copy if the board wants to. You want it in front of you or?
Yeah, you want to, sure.
Might be ready for the moment.
If you cover the microphone, we're not gonna hear.
I got you. I need it. Thanks. It's. Okay. You could also.
It's also on the computer, but
Yeah. It's really big. And
it's a lot easier to see it though, yeah, the whole of this.
That's right, we're gonna come at you in 3D. While you're pulling up the plans, I'll give you just a quick introduction.
Yes, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, for the record, Taylor Palmer, law firm Tutty and Trader, on behalf of the applicant, I'm joined by Mike Fogendorf, our project engineer.
Can I, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Taylor, Mike, and David Burke, our project architect. As Chair mentioned, we do have a planning board number, and we are here for a continued review of our site plan, special permit, subject lot merger. Now I just need to phone the ring to go for the trifecta. We hope you all had a nice Labor Day. And we were last before you in April of this year. The board initiated a secret process for this type 1 action, so it was circulated to the involved and interested agencies. Since we last saw you, we did appear at the zoning board in June and July in connection with our request for area variances related to the side yard setbacks. Of course, we're not trying to be closer to the side yard setbacks. We're trying to be further than what the code permits in that sort of middle area. Based on, we also received comments from the DOT, so that took them quite a few months. We got those in the end of July, so we finally got those, even though we were before you back in April. So based on the comments from the zoning board, from your board, and from the DOT, we reworked plans that Dave's gonna walk you through in just a minute. But as we detailed in our August 21st submission, the first sort of update that we did want to note, which was significant, was we did reduce the southern side yard setback from about 59 feet to 36 feet. So we tried to reduce that to bring it closer. At the same time, as we've noted, we did provide just sort of a general update to the board in correspondence to saying we're working on the plans. We want to come back to you, but we wanted to make sure we updated the plans before we ended up here. But we have also been working with the folks at Agway with respect to a joint or shared driveway there. So that would also negate that variance. There may be a reduced variance plus potential tie-in. We're actively in those discussions. They're, I think, pricing out some of their materials for their driveway to try and make this all come together. So let me just steal the rest of David's talking points and then he'll walk you through those on the plan. We have updated the parking plan on the site. So now we have 157 total parking spaces. That includes 11 land bank spaces. And then we also have 12 on street where we had originally 11. Because we moved the building closer to the side yard setback, that has effectively increased the size of the building. We've sort of gained more space. There were some comments from the zoning board about potentially including more commercial space. So we did add about 1,500 square feet of commercial space, so that effectively brings us closer. So we went from about 7,400 to 8,900 square feet of commercial space. Our unit count increased by 2. They're single bedroom units, but the unit count did go up from 124 to 126. So we've got a slightly larger, but again, the parking all works out on the site. And then another comment, while sort of from this board and from the zoning board collectively, but I think consistently with Zero Place or Agway or the others, we have now included a proposed connection back to the Empire State Trail. So tonight, we're really just here for an update to you all about where we are in the process. Again, the secret process is live. You know, we're before the zoning board of appeals, but we are actively trying to find a solution here around that. At least one of those 2 variances. Again, it's consistent with relief that's been granted by the board for other projects, but we're still trying to make that all work based on feedback that we've gotten so far. So with that, I'll have David walk you through the prettier pictures and give you a sense of where the project's going. And we've also been in contact with Mr. Baden just to sort of discuss in general as we get closer to the public hearing when the plan is there for that digestion. If the board sees fit. We know we have to go to county planning, it was discussed in the prior act for another matter. But if the board did want to have this as a gateway meeting, that'd be something we'd also be welcoming for that gateway meeting. For those not familiar, or if you're all familiar, just gets the stakeholders all at the table. So you'd actually get a DOT representative there. We have a DOT referral out, of course, because of our 2 points of connection to the state highway. So there's just all the agencies that would be involved. You get them into a room and kind of gives the opportunity to have a little bit more back and forth and live interaction instead of a 4-month turnaround.
And I can fill the board in when you get to the point that you want to consider it. The referral would have to come from the board to request a gateway meeting. But I can explain further what it is. We'll let them finish their presentation, then I can explain that.
Perfect. So we'll do the dog and pony show. Dave.
I just one thing,
Yep.
when you were saying you were discussing with the property to the south, if you made that connection, would you be removing the second entrance?
Yeah, it would be a joint entrance with Agway. So we still have the second. And do you want to explain it? Yeah, that's.
So it would still be there.
It's still be an entrance, but it'd be on the lot line.
Yeah,
There'd be no setback.
But they already have
Connection to
2
that instead of
entrances.
straight out to.
Do they have 2 entrances to that?
Yeah, they already
Yeah,
have 2.
yeah.
So
This is we'd have a joint access with the Agway. So our one of our 2 access points would be a shared access.
The way that it works now, what we're presenting now is our own southern entrance.
Yeah.
What's not shown here is another entrance just only maybe 10 feet away, 5 to 10 feet away, right? Which is their northern entrance, right? So what we'd be proposing is that these 2 entrances combine into one. right? And so then you have a northern entrance for ours, a shared southern entrance for both properties, and then one more entrance at the bottom.
Yeah.
Right, does that make sense?
And just to expand on that, our entrance would come off of their entrance.
Yeah, so then what?
So their entrance wouldn't change, essentially, it would just be ours coming off of theirs.
This would move down slightly. And our southern parking lot would, you know, kind of create it'd just be a rectangle, be much simpler than what's happening now. You drive in and you just take a right turn. And then their residents would go straight and left.
Thank you.
Yeah, makes sense? All right, so, keeping it short and sweet, really, there's two things, as Taylor mentioned. The connection to the rail trail, which is this here. Okay, so this would be a bridge, across the creek that runs to the rail trail. And it would be pedestrian, of course, connected through landscape here to the main courtyard. So residents could move straight through it over the rail trail. Second, as we just said, effectively extending the facade of the building. This is a little bit easier to see and it's broken up. We've added a 23-foot deep commercial space to the end of the building and then apartments above. That takes the facade, the exterior facade of the building, which was 57, if my math is correct. 23 feet back, leaving 36 feet offset to the property line. All right, so the distance from this new facade down to the property line is 36 feet.
And that still requires the variance.
Yes.
Yes.
More than 15 feet.
Smaller.
Yep.
And could you just give us a refresher on coordination between the planning board and the ZBA and where the ZBA is in the process?
Sure, so, I mean, it's a little tricky because we don't currently have a code compliant project to review, right? So we don't wanna get too far out ahead of where the ZBA is. You know, the board could wait until the ZBA is finished, but I think that the idea here was to make sure both boards were in the loop so that they didn't finish the whole process with the ZBA, then come to find out that you want them to do something different and the law has to change. So I think the idea is kind of a check-in with this board, right? I think that you can proceed with your seeker review if you want to start doing that. Or you can wait, you know, the ZBA doesn't need the planning board seeker review because that's considered a type 2 for the ZBA. So, yeah.
And if I may, part of our ask tonight, that's exactly where we are, is to hopefully get some written feedback from the consultants that you referred it to at the April meeting. So we'd ask for those comments now, so that way we can digest them, hopefully work them into the plan. So directly to, you know, the planning board attorney's notes, that when we're before the zoning board, the relief we're seeking is hopefully for the design of the building that can be approved.
So we, sorry, I don't think I was here for this. We asked consultants for review in April, but they haven't given
I
you,
didn't remember that.
right, I don't remember that
I
either.
wasn't on a village
Okay, so,
employee yet.
but clearly, if we ask for it, you haven't gotten anything, and if we didn't ask for it, we need to ask for it, but you haven't.
So you authorized it, but then there was some transition, as Ms. Van mentioned, between the consultants and not consultants, but staff. So we're at this time now with the updated design and refinements that we discussed today. We're hoping that the consultants can, you know, look at this as though it's a clean slate, because they haven't looked at, I mean, we've submitted most recently this plan that's before you tonight. We'd ask for those comments because then we can put that, you know, into the design and.
Do you have, and I don't remember if you submitted this, do you want the DOT comments?
Yes, I'm not sure that we necessarily included them, but we can send, we can
Yeah,
certainly
I
submit them.
want to send those to the consultant.
Understood. Yep.
And we do have, I apologize when I get my memo, I missed this folder, we do have a traffic study and a endangered species report and those items in our folder, so if you want to refer those to your consultants, do that.
Okay, yeah, so. Well, I guess before we
Yeah, sorry, I didn't
get
mean to jump
into
to that.
that,
I stole my final point.
did the board have any questions about the new design, the changes, any thoughts?
when will you have a final decision if you were gonna share the entrance? Because certainly that changes a lot of things.
Yeah, so we're moving forward with the application we have here because we can't rely on an adjoining property owner for that. Certainly they could hold us up, they could extort us. I'm not saying that they will. They've been communicating very nicely and we're trying to work that out, but I can't. Yeah, so I understand. The last information I had is they're pricing out what the materials cost. I don't think they even have building permits yet for their project.
They
So,
do not, and they're a ways away.
so,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would just say that I strongly prefer to have a shared driveway. I think it would, look kind of, well, it would just look better and probably be easier on traffic on that stretch of 32, but.
Well, a small question, where you built the additional segment of the building on the south side. And where that driveway flows into the parking that's there, there's two arrows, does that all work for flow? It looks like it
So-
goes like this, and then there's arrows in both directions,
Yeah,
and people would be backing out of those spots
At the
there.
moment, we're asking for both in and out direction on this entrance.
Okay, so,
And yes, we've done some traffic analysis and it does work.
our traffic consultant did move from Craig Manning to Labella, but remains the same consultant.
Understood. Okay, well, I think.
I may have missed it,
Pretty
but did you
straightforward.
speak about the access to the rail trail?
Yes. Thank you.
Is that something that the public will be able to access as well?
Yes,
that deals with the connection to the rail.
we would have to make some type of easement agreement, but we discussed at our April meeting that we would be open to certainly understanding that there's that level of continuity. So however that should be embodied, we can try and, or we can at least propose something. But yes, the intent is that it would be publicly accessible.
Okay. And did these changes result in any changes to all the stormwater engineering or the drainage plan or?
Generally, it all goes to the same place as it did in the previous plan. We just had to shift a few catch basins around. But we still have a bypass line that takes on drainage from the east side of North Chestnut through an existing culvert. And we bypass that around our system and put it into the stream in the back. But everything on site goes through, whichever stormwater system that it's directed to on prior to being discharged.
There is an update in the folder for that as well.
Okay.
So we do have a stormwater plan. I know that you mentioned some referrals this evening. I think it was previously, and I don't know if Mr. Bodenover has been in contact with, was it done, Ms. Larios?
I sent Mr. Larios the original plan and a SWIP. I don't remember exactly when, but he has the SWIP. I can always send him additional copies if he needs them.
Yeah, one of our
And,
requests is,
and,
yeah.
a copy of this plan, which is, stormwater wise is generally the same thing.
If the board sees fit, we would also ask that the board consider either recirculating or requesting those comments, so that Mike can also have some input there on the stormwater side.
Sure. Okay, well, I think I'm comfortable with referring this to our consultants. I appreciate what you've the changes you made to try to work with the DBA and get closer to those zoning standards. So I think who's everyone that we should?
Dennis Larios, engineer, DTS, traffic consultant.
Capital?
So, yeah, environmental for the wetlands study.
you point out generally where the land bank parking is? And what's the rationale for not including them in the plan?
Well, we don't wanna build pervious or impervious
Yeah.
parking spaces.
We
don't
hear
do
that,
So
just make, just,
this is where 9 of them are, and then these 2 are sort of just at the end of the,
okay.
parking base. So they're there. Yeah, we've done this a few times. I think we mentioned this before. We've done it on a few projects in Beacon where none of them have been built yet, but that doesn't mean they won't be built. But I think it's a good start to something that you don't know exactly how many spaces are really required. until the
I
thing
asked
operates.
because I'm wondering if there could even be more, so we'll just, it's good to know where they are and
Mhm.
keep an eye on it.
So. Do I need a motion, an individual motion for each of these referrals?
We do all three together.
Okay, great. Could I get a motion to refer the updated site plan here to our village engineer, our traffic consultant, as well as our environmental consultant?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I could explain the gateway meeting if you think it's to the point. So what the gateway meeting is the county planning department will look at the application and get, or attempt to get, everybody involved around the table. They're now back into in-person meetings. It's usually held in Kingston. It would be, you know, a representative or two of this board, as long as you don't have a quorum, it's okay. It would be the planning board attorney, perhaps the village attorney, because they are looking to tie into the wastewater system and water system. It would include any of the village's engineers, because the ZBA is involved. If they haven't made decisions yet, it may involve them. It would also include all of their consultants, and then it would include a representative DOT, probably a representative of county health department. Essentially, everybody who may have some input. We've been doing them on the county planning board level for about 8 years now, 10 years. And it's really productive. Dennis Doyle, the county planner, is really good. He put the map in the center of the table and he goes around department by department and you have dialogue and conversation. And you walk out of there with a marked up plan, but I've yet to see an application that doesn't come out better than when it started. It's very productive. And for a larger project like this, where there's a lot of pieces, moving parts and things, I think it's a good idea. I freely admit I'm a little biased being on the planning board, but
So we like
I
to
find
see you
it
there.
to be a good project, a good process.
So if I may, while a county referral is required pursuant to General Municipal Law 239, this is not a required referral, but it's one that sometimes, as Mr. Bay mentioned, can be helpful to get the cooks, you know, in our kitchen, maybe not the same kitchen.
Interesting, okay, and so it's your recommendation that.
It would be my recommendation that this board request a gateway meeting. What I would do is I would send the information to the county. They would look at it. They would identify all the partners with the assistance of the applicant and try to find a common meeting time. People can zoom in, you know, if need be, but they do try to do it in person as much as possible.
And the idea that your recommendation to do that for this building is, for this application, is relative to the other ones that have been built in the NBR, is just the scale of the 3 years so times bigger, and so it has that many more considerations?
Yeah,
Or might you have suggested this
I would have suggested it
for any of the other?
for any of the others as well, just based on the mixed use aspect, the access to the rail trail, the connections to the village water and sewer system, the DOT involvement. There's a lot of input, and to try to coordinate all the input from this level. If you get the dialogue going in a one-on-one or 20 or whatever, however many people we end up with, I always find them to be very productive. It's not required. If this board says, you know, we don't think it's worthwhile, then you shouldn't do it, but I find them to be worthwhile. It usually is daytime, but, you know, they're not normally nighttime.
Right. Well, I'm open to the idea. I still not quite sure what parts of the application would be like worked on, or which parts need improvement.
I think you get more feedback personally from, you know, this is where the village engineer can talk to the county health department and, you know, it's just, it's the dialogue that comes out of it.
Sure.
That I find to be productive.
Our hope is that nothing changes, of course, but conceptually, sometimes we just want to try and get as much feedback as we can. And that way we can get the plan in a position where hopefully we can say to the zoning board, hey, we need to proceed this way, or we need to proceed. Yeah, that way.
I'm open to the idea of the gateway meeting, and sounds like it could result in some good feedback, so. Yeah,
I would say, yeah, I would say a motion to request that the Ulster County Planning Board assemble a gateway meeting. It could be a really interesting way to approach the project and build some capacity in us to have gone through one of those and learn how to do it and use it for other things. The MDR is only getting more, you know, built and complicated. So let's, I would like to do that too. So that's my motion.
Was there normally be one planning board member that goes?
It can be two, as long as we have, sometimes we've had two, it usually is the chair is invited, but it can be any member. As long as you don't have a quorum, because we did have a challenge to a gateway meeting because somebody was saying that we had a quorum, but we proved that we did not, and it was overturned. So.
Okay, well. Do we have a second for Rich's motion? All in favor? Aye. Great, so we will.
Yeah,
request
the board
that.
can decide, and like I said, traditionally it's the chair, but the board can decide who is available and.
One question I'd like to ask, or maybe just make a comment, is that as we look at the way that each of these buildings has been designed in terms of the way they interface with Route 32, in terms of parking and bike lane and all the considerations. Have you looked at the proposed frontage with Route 32 of each of the other buildings built in the MBR from yours south? To know that the proposal you've made for the way it intersects with the roadway is going to be contiguous with the way all of the other ones are? Or is it possible that yours will have the parking inside and theirs has a bike lane outside and they'll change along the way?
So it's a good question, and yes, we have looked at the way the other buildings have done it. But being a state roadway, it's at the mercy of the DOT, and you may know that Agway has proposed the bike lane and parking where the bike lane was on the interior.
Right.
And the parking was removed, and the bike lane was removed, actually, right? Was that? Yeah.
So you're not gonna be able to have a full bike lane?
So
I think that they designed the bike lane, they didn't actually put it in, but they left space.
they left space here, you're absolutely right.
They
Thank you.
didn't want it to be just one segment.
Thank
They
you.
wanted it to be available for the.
That's absolutely right. So there is room to put the bike lane in later on. In our case, we're proposing it similarly, where you have parking protecting the bike lane, and then you have the pedestrian plaza. We just received DOT comments, and if my recollection served me, the bike lane was identified as possibly being removed. They requested it being removed because, in their opinion, there's no other bike lane, either to the north or to the south, which isn't really the point, actually, but that's just my opinion. So we're currently responding to those DOT comments. They haven't gone out yet. But I think our point is going to be clear that the bike lane is not just about connecting to other places, but to giving a kind of a rest spot to bikes. and increasing the pedestrian activity at the building. We'll see what happens. But maybe a good opportunity to the Gateway meeting to actually have a discussion about the importance of pedestrian activity and bike lanes.
Yeah.
You know, at this building.
Such a deficit in this area, just adding this much more movement, it's
That's right.
gonna only make it worse.
And the parking is also quite critical, as you probably know. Those 12 spaces in front of the building are important to our total count. So, although they didn't identify the parking to be removed, it's what's happened at other, applications. So we're a little bit nervous about what could happen with that parking, because that will.
Zero Place has, of course, the street.
They do, it's actually, it impacts
that's
the
why I
line of
parked
sight when you're pulling out, so it's good in the way that it's good, but it's challenging actually,
Yeah.
so these are all things that we keep looking at. Okay, thanks, sorry about that condition.
That was a very long answer to your.
Yeah, it's really important, and it's just right now, it seems like hodgepodge, and I don't even remember what else everybody else has, but it doesn't seem to be the same, so it's answered, thank you.
We do build this into a lot of other projects, Mike mentioned some beacon projects, but that's the same thing, when things are in the planning process, rail trails or otherwise, you still have to. We're thinking it through, we're putting it there, it may not be on the plan, but as the planning board attorney mentioned. You know, you leave it there and hopefully it will come, I guess, in this case.
Okay, thank you.
To the degree that you can use pervious surfaces, that is infinitely preferable. That is a wet area. There is evidence there in the stream of previous beaver impoundments. They're very, very old, but it's a wet area and it is by the rail trail, so. And of course, there's this whole thing with the large amounts of wastewater going into the sewage system. That's why raw sewage is coming out of the plant. Because of those influxes. So to the degree that we can control them, it helps the entire community, especially since there's so much development.
And our plan, without getting into too much detail, but the courtyard area is meant to function as a stormwater management system. So to retain stormwater and let it infiltrate before it gets pushed out into the public waters. And likewise, the automobile circulation around the back, the intention here is to consider pervious paving. So that we have more of a natural landscape that moves from the courtyard out to the thicker woods area here in the rail trail. Rather than it being kind of interrupted by pavement. That will handle more as we get closer to the design.
Thank you.
So there are a couple other items that we should look at. Have you been been in contact with the design review board, HPC yet?
You made the referral at the April meeting, but we haven't been before them, so.
Okay.
I guess we could certainly speak with Michael maybe and coordinate a more formal.
We can do that.
Yeah,
Get together.
I think it's at the point where we
Okay.
could start. Getting. Yeah, they can start looking at it. Then I guess there's also the issue of the special use permits being requested and generally we ask applicants to provide a narrative for each of those permits in the zoning. There's a sort of a.
In our most recent submission, based on your comments, we did include at least a general breakdown of the special permit standards specific to our application. So that
In that package, I didn't.
yeah, it was, I mean, we went to the specific section of the code to try and highlight its continuity or collect size. Yeah, it's in the letter. It's not like a separate narrative. It's in the letter itself. Yeah. If you get to the pages. Two
Okay.
starts it and then you get into page, goes through page 3 to the, before the conclusion. So pages 2 and 3 touch on the various sections. What we're doing from stormwater components and, you know, the retail spaces and, the number of spaces. So we do get into that, tying into the rail trail and things to that effect.
Okay, usually we have folks go through the actual
So point by point, sure.
criteria, but it's my field. We don't, we can address that.
I'll look at that. I didn't see that.
Okay.
in there
Skim
either.
past some of
So,
them.
No, we try to sort of, yeah, consolidated into.
No problem. And were there any other steps that we can take this time? Okay. Yeah, I think that's all for tonight then. Thanks for coming in.
Yes, thanks so much for your time. Thank you. Appreciate it.
This one.
Yeah, that's the one that takes after me.
Great.
You get it if you want to hand.
Yeah, no, not working. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next we have PB 2415, 7 Prospect Street.
You have a plan for this too.
Yeah, we did have the hard copies and stuff there.
And that's the elevation.
Like version of the original approved or just the.
I don't have that, that's on the Google Drive. I could go pull the one I could buy, but I did not.
Okay, so can you just give us a brief overview of what's going on here?
Yeah, my name's Anthony Maluso. I have a little firm in Gardner. I've lived there since 1989. I try not to come and work in my own town. My wife's with DOT planning, so I just try not to go to the same towns. Unless a friend calls. And a while back, Lee Frizzell and Sam asked me to develop a utility plan. And that was something I put on an aerial. And I showed the building layout, and I had to figure out what elevation the building had to be set at to make it into the sewer. And at the time, the street was open, the manholes had already been delivered, and I met the contractor working right out on Prospect Street. So it was very easy to determine what needed to be done. When I developed that utility plan, what I submitted looked very much like this, which that's not what you.
Yeah,
Which I had
Tell me
connected.
what your role is with the
Yeah.
project. That
So-
would be helpful.
I was the utility engineer, and now Mr. Frizzell is not available, so I'm filling in for him, and I may or may not take over. Depends on what we need to determine as a path forward. Sound good?
So he's the engine.
Okay, so I apologize, I know I'm coming in late. So the original plan before the fourth revision in April had a connector building between the two buildings. And if you're familiar with the site, you know that on one side of, let's say the north side of the building is the driveway. And there's access to the basement. There's a structure that allows you to access the basement for laundry and to repair mechanical equipment and so on and so forth. I see that the board's been very accommodating, and so is the owner to the neighbors. And so I went back and I kind of went back in time and I tried to figure out how we got to where we are. And about a month ago, I was out there when they started framing out the building after the foundation had been installed. And I thought, wasn't there a connector here? You know, just to myself, I got in the car and walked away because they only asked me to do one thing. And it was kind of, I did it on a volunteer basis at that point. And the connector was gone. And so removing that connector building takes out 2 bedrooms, 5 windows, and access to the basement. And I don't know how we got to that point where in March that came up. Mike? It came up in
March meeting.
It came up at the March meeting, and I'm gonna try to get a copy of those minutes and try to understand what happened. And in April, Lee submitted a plan that not only chopped off that little appendage on the building, But he shoved the building 23.5 feet toward the street. And actually closer to the neighbors who don't really want all those extra people living right on top of them. So if you look at the original plan, the rear offset in Lee's plan, if you could read with a microscope, was 89 feet. And when he was all done in April of this year, it was 112 feet. So he took that 23 feet right off the building. And that was never the intent. And I don't know how we got there. The building inspector, Alex, didn't realize it. I didn't realize it until much later. So we need to back up and understand what drove the change to make Lee shove that building up 23 feet and take out
Well,
2 bedrooms instead of 1. And
I'll just give you the very short
Yeah,
answer,
please.
which is this board had many meetings and many discussions of trying to make this a better plan. And that was decided that we would eliminate that connector and to make the house more cohesive, to make it take less of the site to, you know, it was sure some input of the neighbors. They also, you know, wanted to see a smaller building, which we felt was appropriate for the site. So these were all decisions that were discussed with the applicant, discussed with the architect, and discussed with all the members of the board.
so I don't want to say we acquiesced to what the neighbors wanted. We accommodated to some extent.
No,
But
that's
we
not what
created,
happened.
but we created a non-functional project. So we need to fix it.
Like, I mean, if that was the case, then why was this issue not raised during the first planning process?
I wasn't involved.
During the first planning was, this is the picture of it. When you guys suggested removing the common entrance, was never mentioned demoing any part of the existing house.
There's a part of the plan that says demo existing.
I saw that.
House, that's written there.
Which is the common entrance, which is everybody suggested to
I'm
remove.
sorry, something that doesn't.
And that was the intention, never.
We're not
Okay.
looking at old plans.
Okay.
Let's just look at the site plan that was approved, that was the one that was supposed to be built, like. I'm sorry, that's what was agreed upon, that's what you agreed upon, the board agreed upon, and. If these were issues, they should have been raised then. Now the board is tasked with reviewing this plan. In my opinion, we just have to look at it as if it's a new proposed plan and evaluate it on its own merits. And, you know, try to,
Clarify for the board, this is listed as a new application. It's an amendment to an approved site plan because the board did approve the other site plan. A stop work order was issued because it was discovered to be constructed, not in conjunction with the approved site. So it is a new project, but it's an amendment to the site plan that was approved in, was it May? I believe it was
May. I think Lee's last change is April 26th of this year, but I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I think the meeting to approve it was the second May meeting.
So I don't know what drove pushing the buildings together, but it missed an obvious functional requirement, you know, full and follows function, so.
yeah, I mean, I wish he'd involved you sooner so you could have identified that, but.
Can I just ask a question here? Because I'm trying to understand visually and I've looked at things. But there was an original proposal. I think I came in at some point mid-proposal, but I was here for a lot of public comment, but also for the board's discussions. There were many discussions that I heard, if did not participate in, about things. So we got to an approval. Are we now being asked to approve the original proposal, or are you coming in with a whole new? When you're talking about amended a site plan, is this a whole new thing, or are we going back to essentially square one? That's my I can't track all the different changes, and that's what I'm trying to understand, because I think there's a fundamental unfairness to that. If we had a process, came forward, had all these things, Lee's not here, but that's not really the point. The point is that there was an agreed upon site plan that was approved in May, that it's the responsibility of the applicant to know that it is feasible and viable. And I'm just trying to understand, as I'm being asked to consider a new thing, where that falls in the scope of things.
This project is a hybrid of the two. The new connector piece that was originally between the two buildings, that is removed. What happened, as best I can figure from listening to the audio tapes, and is also removed with that connector piece, which many people on the board asked to be removed. There was a piece of the existing one-family house that was also removed from the drawings at the same time. When they constructed, they left that piece and constructed the new structure flush up against it. So that's why I say it's a hybrid. It's not the original plan you looked at, but it's also not the plan you approved. It's somewhere.
It's an intermediary between existing one-story remains, the connector building is built, and the new structure is set way back 89 feet from the real line. So it just has to be considered as a project that restores the functionality of the existing residence. It only takes out the one bedroom on paper, not physically as a demolition.
There is no demolition in the existing house.
On the approved application, I actually looked at it earlier. There's a note to the application lined up to that segment that says a removal of or demolition of existing existing home. So it was, I know what was approved was clear to us. I don't know exactly what explanation we're getting around why it was infeasible to do it that way. I'd have to learn a little bit more to understand that. But that sounds like the architect or the engineer behind the project must have done something that didn't make it make sense. I don't know exactly what that is. I do have a question about how this happened, how the construction was done differently than planned. Don't the footings and the foundation have to be approved
Yes.
before the
So I
framing
can-
begins?
I can answer that from the building department. Quite simply, the building inspector made a mistake. The addition on the site plan is the new two-family house. He went there, he inspected, he measured, he was focused on the addition of the new addition. He missed the note to remove the piece of the existing house. So he was only looking at the addition. I'm not defending it, I'm just stating what happened. So until we received a complaint and appeal to the ZBA, which is ongoing, of the issuance of that building permit, Alex and I went out there and measured and determined that yes, it was not as was approved. The stop work order was issued and a remedy to, which is in the folder, a remedy to correct the defect. And so the applicant is attempting this as a way to, because they've already poured the foundation and built the structure.
Yeah.
The appeal was filed before they built the structure, but under advice of the town's council, and at that point, we hadn't identified what the problem was. They were allowed to continue because it was a third-party appeal. So under court precedent, we were advised that they should be allowed to continue. So that's how we got to where we got. whether that factors into your decision is up to you guys, but that's how we arrived at where we arrived.
And the two permits we were issued, one permit for a demo of the barn. And the second permit we were issued to construct a 4-bedroom addition to the existing one-family house and reducing the number of bedrooms from 5 to 6. And it never was any intention of destruction or demoing any part of the old house.
Mike, you said that the Google Drive has the approved plans, and I'm just looking for the folder and not finding it.
It's right there. I give you a picture of it. This is came from Alice.
This one?
Yeah.
There's on the, I'm looking for the elevation, of the approved plan.
So if you go to the, there is a previous approval, if you go, are you in the public or private? folder?
Yeah, the previous approval, is that the one I'm looking at?
Yeah, it's in the April 30th.
April 30th, previous approval has the 3, A1, A2, A3, those are the approved. The piece you want to look at is A3.
Yeah, so this is what, I'm sorry, it's on my computer, but what, yeah, so there's a version that says with a note, remove portion of existing 1-floor building. If that's the, I don't know if that's the one I'm referring to. I saw more than one of them that says that, it's clear. And so I guess the other question I have is, was it a mistake that it was built the way it was built?
To be honest with you, everybody looked at the plans and the construction start and we got the permit and the building inspector came in.
Right.
Everybody understanding, if you know, the building is going behind the existing one-family structure, the only demo is the barn. Nobody caught it until Mike came in with,
it caught my attention.
and they did the measurement.
What drove the fact that originally the building had to have a common entrance and then later on it did not?
It never had to. The applicant proposed it with a common entrance. but
No.
The board said that it wasn't necessary.
No.
And well, the board can. Yeah.
We were asked in the first few meetings to have a common entrance between both units.
Was that an egress requirement, you know, for fire safety or something like that?
No.
Was it just a
and
mechanical to meet the requirements of the code?
The final plan did not have a common entrance, the board was okay with two separate entrances.
That was removed in March. How it got there, I didn't listen to all the meetings, but the March meeting, it was removed, and which led to these April 26 drawings.
I mean, unfortunately, that I see this plan has the same problems that the original plan that we reviewed back in March has, and I would suggest that you either find a way to move the structure closer and build it
It's not
to
happening.
the plan,
It's not.
or get creative about ways to make the building feel more unified, reduce the footprint.
Which is, it is the building now. We put the gable roof the way you guys asked us to do on the flat roof. It's all been re-sided to match the same color. The basement entrance, which is in the original approved plan, that if that happened, we're gonna be on top of the basement entrance and blocking all the windows on the side, which is impossible.
Okay.
That's a side.
I don't need that.
Okay.
I'm looking at the approved site plan, which doesn't show
It
basement
doesn't-
entrance.
The basement entrance is not.
It's not on it and blocking all the windows. If that happens, it's
So-
impossible. So
No,
that
I'm
plan
just
does
saying,
not meet.
That's the problem. I'm not saying it's a problem, but it's not.
It's just what I think happened when we removed that common entrance, somehow he removed the two rooms with it.
Well,
And this footnote,
there was always one element of the project where there were 5 bedrooms in the first residential part of it.
And reducing
And they were gonna take out one bedroom, and I don't know if in Lee's mind, he thought,
6 to 5.
he thought that that last 12 feet was the last bedroom, and it had to go anyway. It didn't have to be, it didn't have to be physically removed, it had to be something else. We proposed it to be a laundry room, because.
Is
Makes
Mr.
sense.
Frizzell still involved in this application?
And Anthony gonna take care of the whole thing.
I'm gonna speak to Lee tomorrow.
Okay.
Taking over.
I think that would
He
be a
shared
good
all his files with me, so I could get this together for you to
Uh,
evaluate.
I'm just concerned that we're back at the same thing being basically, I feel like there was a lot of conversation and discussion to get to agreement, and at no point did the applicant and the consultants tell us that we can't do this. It's not feasible, it's not physically feasible. We, as a planning board, are not the engineering experts, nor are we the people who can make those determinations, the engineering or the architecture about whether something is feasible. That's not within my scope. These were the recommendations, they were accepted, they were drawn, and then they were approved. And now we're basically being asked to go back to the same thing that was problematic in the first place, and that feels very uncomfortable to be asked to approve, because and this is an experience I've had before where it's never malice, but people start things and do things that are not aligned. And then we're asked to bless them on the back end, and it evades the purpose of the code and the planning process. And it's not malicious, it's not intentional, but it becomes problematic.
We came here to try to find a reasonable solution, and the chairman pointed out, maybe we need to do something to make it look more cohesive. And maybe we all need to go take a trip and take a look at it. It's all been re-sided, all new windows. It looks like all new construction. I'm taking out, well, hopefully we'll take out that structure, that the gable basement access, and put a Vilco hatch in there, number one, just to make it look like it's a basement.
Okay, yeah, so I think that, you know, this board can do their own site visits. If you think that, you know, you have some creative solutions to fix the, you know, the very real issues that were brought up at our previous discussions of this application, then we welcome a site plan that does that. I don't believe this site plan as it stands now is satisfactory.
Can you explain, thanks, Zach, and thank you, Nikki. Can you explain, what is the length of the remaining building that was to be demoed that wasn't? And how does that affect the overall length of the building? What is the length of that segment?
It's like 12 feet.
Yeah.
It's like 12 feet.
And then you made reference to a distance from the sort of the rear setback that changed. But I thought the reference you made there was way more than 12.
89 to 149.
The building was drawn, when he redrew it, it was drawn in the wrong place. He had it positioned in the wrong place in relation to Prospect Street.
I see.
He had it pushed.
Wasn't even possible, so it would have meant moving.
No, he had the whole structure pushed about 12 feet too deep.
Okay, so that.
We went and measured that.
That was accidental, that it was just.
Yeah, I don't know how that.
Location on the lot.
Yes.
Well, there are some engineering mistakes that the architect made, you know, he made a few.
So I'm understanding now that that was a mistake. The reality is this 12-foot segment that.
This is the reality. That's all I tried to capture was what's going on now and put hard numbers on the plan. Something that was, you know, just planimetric and to scale before. These are actual numbers. And then I updated the table, show where the building sits on the property. And to say, here's our problem. Tell us how we can cure this? Or what would be acceptable? And one of the things I heard was there's a precedent for letting applicants make changes after it's approved. And the second thing is make it look more cohesive. Do something creative to make it look like it should be that way. And so maybe if we all met out there, or at least took a walk.
To clarify. I didn't say the precedent was something that it
It's
should
not
be
favorable,
followed,
yeah.
it's not favorable, it's not something I agree with. And it's, so I wanna be very clear that I do not think that that is acceptable or appropriate because it undermines any level of having the process. I don't think that's a precedent that I'm suggesting or recommending.
No, it's a past precedent, different boards. I thought about not saying that, and I shouldn't have. So going forward, this is what it looks like today.
Yes, yeah, and Emily just asked me, Alex and I went and measured the front and the two side yard setbacks. We couldn't measure the rear because it goes down a steep
Yeah, it's a cliff.
So, but we did identify the original drawing had the side yard setback as being shorter than it was. We found the survey markers. The previous architect was using the retaining stone wall. And in reality, it's about 18 inches to 2 feet off.
Yeah.
Further into the neighboring property is where the lot line is. So we found the survey markers and verified.
So the building is not in the side yard setback.
Building is not in the side yard setback.
It's clear.
Is the existing one? I don't remember the existing. Is that's not an even, yeah. It was originally shown as being like 2.5 feet into the side yard.
Looks like it's a little bit. of
It might be slightly, but that's the existing. That's not the.
That's,
But we measured where the new one is, and it is not within the side yard setback. The whole position on the lot of the existing and the proposed was considerably off. But we went there last Monday and took all these measurements.
Is that considerably off because of this failure to demo, or is that a separate failure?
No.
The building is located.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The front setback was like approximately 12 foot. The building was drawn 12 feet deeper than it actually is. We don't know why.
I don't know if he was trying to get to some magic number on lot coverage, it wasn't necessary. I refigured it all.
And as I understand it, there are no, aside from the fact that the building is currently not according to the approved plan, there's no other appeals required for what is being proposed to this.
So this is a new application, so you would proceed as if, you've approved the site plan. You are now moving forward with a new, forgetting the fact that it has partially been constructed.
Yeah.
You are moving forward with, you're either approving what's proposed or you're not approving what's proposed.
But there's no variances required of the. proposed.
Not anymore.
Alex has reviewed this and said it.
Alex, yes, Alex sent a memo today, which is in the folder that this is code compliant.
But I thought you just said that this new structure was.
No,
within
the
side yard.
existing structure is possibly a couple inches into the setback.
Structure.
The old
Oh.
structure,
The old
not the newly constructed.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not the newly constructed,
Oh.
the existing, yeah,
Alright.
the existing meaning.
But it was originally suggested that it was, but they clarified it.
Correct. Because the edge of the stone wall was being used by the previous architect to measure the side yard setbacks.
It's beyond.
We identified that was in.
So there's no new construction that's being, that was.
Right. There's no variances
Highlighted from
required
Okay.
of this as proposed.
It's 13.4
Yeah.
instead of 12.6.
So on your new drawing, the building does look very even. But but when you look at the actual building, it doesn't look even at all. the connection that you have there.
No,
You mean the roof line?
Yes.
yeah, you don't see that split where it
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
I drew that,
Yeah.
I think the job right
So
there.
this drawing still doesn't look like what is
No, it
there.
does. You know what I need to do? Just take this roof line and just go like that.
Yeah, then I was gonna tell you.
To
you're
make
missing
that, I
a
put the
line.
double wall in to show that it ends there. There's a little bit of a jog that you wouldn't see unless it's in plan view, which is here. It's right there.
So. I think I made my position clear about what I think needs to happen next. Does the board, agree that we should look at some other options here? Other potential solutions for this issue?
So they say great minds think alike, but Mike and I were on the same wavelength on the same day. And I said, we need to take out that horrible looking structure. You know, it's an old brick concrete and
The basement.
log siding, it's just old siding. 6 foot high, 6 foot wide roof, you know, structure. We're gonna take that out, cut the wall down so you don't see it anymore, and put a Bilco hatch on it. And just preserve the access to the basement to get to the mechanicals, the plumbing, the heating, the laundry room. All that has to be preserved. And the fact that Lee just pushed it up, you know, I can't tell you what was going through his mind. I can't. But that's the only way that the existing building could be serviced. Without making a new basement access and
with a stone foundation.
and then chop it to the, you know, it's a horrible stone foundation. It's prehistoric. And it would have to happen. It would have to happen in the driveway. So yeah, it's not necessarily.
I mean, unfortunately, this board can't give you the answers of what exactly, you know,
Well,
we
take a
wanna
look at
see.
it.
I just believe that there more work needs to be done on this site plan, this proposal.
Other than the balcony door, the engineer suggested, what do you have in mind?
I mean, anything to make it look like it's one contiguous structure and reduce the amount of lot coverage
Well,
that this building is taking.
we can't build any more impermeable surface.
That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the mass.
So what we had proposed in this plan here is that this area right in here, between the existing structure and proposed Bilco hatch, we'd build a short retaining wall and we put something in here to slope off and be a pervious surface and drain out into a landscaped area. So this is all landscaped behind there, in between the buildings. But you can't really build any more impervious surface without going over the 30%. And you can't,
Well, yeah, then I mean, I think something else has to change. I don't know what, but I'm sure there's creative solutions to.
well, you need to look at it and say, hey, this really does look like it's one building. So please.
I will be visiting the site.
It's a
yes.
block and a half away, you know, please ask yourself to just drive by, walk up the driveway and see what an improvement it is for the neighborhood.
There is a
I will be doing that.
very nice building now on the block with the new sizing and the new head roof in the middle, no more flat roof. It looks very, very nice and prosperous, that's for sure, compared to other buildings next to it.
Well, I guess we want to see a plan that has, whatever improvements we think we can make of it. I think in parallel, we want to be thinking about what it would look like if this board doesn't approve the change, the amendment. Like, I think you gotta have a plan B. I think the plan when it comes back, if you're suggesting that it would keep the original 15.3 segment and the 11.9 segment and just remove the little doghouse and put a Bilco door. But we're still gonna have, 1, 2, 3, 4 different roof lines. And the stagger.
Well, they changed it.
There is
No gable over the first floor. To make it look like it's one or two.
Is that on this plan?
Yeah.
Yeah. The gable over the first floor, meaning.
The flat roof between the two sections, it's all gable roof now.
So that's an additional, I see it, I have a photograph of it when it was under construction. So you've added this uniform roof line instead?
I think that's just because of perspective, but the
Show it
actual
that way.
elevation.
So the stagger is front.
Yes.
I'm gonna come back and see the site. I've been to
Yeah, I
the site,
appreciate
so you
you
know,
taking
I
a
have been, and I made the recommendation with the board members to shorten this connector because it's really unattractive and now we confirmed how unattractive it is.
Well, the connector was unattractive, it did look like a linkage in a chain.
And it sounds like, I'm sorry, Sam, you've experienced malpractice by a
This is what it looks like.
engineer and an architect.
It's one roof.
I'm gonna come look at it for sure.
It's one roof, not.
But, the way the meeting began, it was as though maybe the recommendations and decisions that we made were the reason we got here.
I was trying to understand.
I wanted to make
where we
sure
are.
that
Yeah.
nobody is under the impression that this board is the reason we're here. As a matter of fact, it sounds like mistakes made by the paid members of this,
I'm gonna start to
and
object.
your engineers
Straight
and your
mistake.
architect.
The engineer didn't make any mistakes. He was called in after the fact.
Okay, I'm just saying the professionals that developed the plan made mistakes. And those that are employed by the village made mistakes. And now we're being asked to consider what to do with it. And so I'd be most comfortable if we could. All the other campaigns we've had in place for that right now. And then we have to see if there can be a plan made on what's been built. If not, it can't be built.
But the structure already up, which approved and inspected by the building department. Roof is up, building is up, foundation is up. And I have a permit saying to put an addition next to an existing one-family house. And reduce the rooms from 6 to 5, which is never mentioned about demo. And if you go through the minutes, which is going to provide it, we never talk about demo in any part of the existing house. And no less blocking the basement, blocking windows, and putting a non-conforming building.
It was very clear from the site plan.
Yeah.
It's noted on the site plan.
And to
language.
correct that, Lee does, because I watched
Yeah.
the video, Lee does at one point say, we will be demoing whether. he
The
does- he
the
does
common
say-
entrance.
No, he talks about the piece.
So we are at the position, we need to come up with a common agreement, what we need to do next. Which is, we would love for you guys to come in and look and give recommendations. I'm open to it.
Yeah, so this is just where we are now.
I will come and look. I do not feel comfortable giving you recommendations. I am happy to review proposals and comment on a proposed solution, but I am not in a position to provide ideas or suggestions on what should be changed because that discussion happened and was approved, and for whatever reasons, your team said it could be done and it couldn't be done, and it wasn't done. So we're in the position we are. I'm not in a position to give you the suggestions. You can propose them and we can look at them and consider them.
But we just need to understand what you think would make it look more conforming. That's really it. Maybe more screening. We've already pushed it back, I think, it used to line up with the existing structure on the driveway. It was pushed back because of the neighbors, I think. The porch was removed, which made it
No
look
porch,
nice. So we've destroyed some of the features to get to this point. But the one we can't destroy is the functionality of access to the existing basement.
I really don't know what to say, like, there must be other ways to access basement, build in access to the basement, certainly that's gonna be cheaper than removing everything that was just built, so. Yeah, it's gonna take some outside the box thinking for sure.
Hopefully some flexibility. Have a great night. Thank you for seeing us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move.
Second, you're second, all in favor?
Rich, second?
Yes, Rachel.
Thank you.